You know, it's kind of surprising. For a game that, in many ways, is built around randomness and the roll of a die, it feels like DMs really worry about embracing randomness in D&D. Whether that's randomness in the items they reward, or the encounters they create, the dungeons that they push their players through, or even the NPCs that they create, right? And it makes their job a little bit harder and more planning intensive. For many DMs, I understand why they don't embrace randomness. They think that doing random tables rather than carefully planned conclusions and rewards is less than. But it could instead be different than. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, DMs and DM hopefuls. My name is Tanner Wayland. Welcome to How to Be a Better DM, the show for DMs who just want to have fun, but they might not be having fun with every aspect of D&D. Today, we've got a great topic. First, brief teaser. I'll talk about more at the end of the episode. But Justin and I just wanted to let you guys know if any of you are in Utah or coming to Utah. So there's this Fan X event, basically like Comic-Con. Used to be called Comic-Con Salt Lake, and then they got sued and had to change their name. Don't worry about it. Regardless, it's the 25th through 27th of September, and we're presenting on a few panels. So I'll talk more about like what the topics and times for that will be at the end of our podcast. But yeah, if you're in town, come see us, ask some questions during the panels, whatever. We'd love to see you. Regardless, let's get on to the main, meat of the episode. Randomness. Does it have a purpose in D&D? And could you actually be leaning into it more? Now, I bring this up, speaking of FanX, because we were preparing with the people from Worldsmith. We're actually doing a panel with them, which is just a 1 hour session. It's tight. We've run it before. It's very tight. So we have to be efficient. But the whole concept was like, okay, can you do essentially a little bit of a word game salad of a session where like, okay, players do blank, they see blank, they fight blank, and each of those blanks is like a random thing that gets generated. And of course, in our case, we were using Worldsmith, like we've talked about before. But it was an interesting experience when we were kind of test running it, because I realized I was like, oh my goodness, this is something that I so rarely feel with D&D, which is just like, oh, what's going to happen? And what are we going to get? We could get a really cool item. We could fight a boss that's way over our heads, just like too much. But it was fun in so many ways. And I realized that, DMs, and in many ways I'm guilty of this as well. We think, hey, being random just means that you didn't have time to prepare and you're not as good of a DM, right? And that feels a little bit backwards because, like I stated at the start, rolling your dice every turn is a whole bunch of randomness. Sure, you're rolling it for specific actions, but you're still like, oh, we don't know how this is going to go, right? And so with that being the case, I feel like we need to address 3 core concerns that come with embracing randomness in D&D and how you can embrace it in a way that empowers you rather than kind of feels you off kilter. It makes you feel off kilter rather. Also, if you hear any snoring or anything, my dog's sleeping in here. He's very cute. Anyway, so problem number 1, I think a lot of DMs, they don't want to be random with anything. And just to preface a little bit, when I say randomness, I mean there are tables online or there are tables you can create or find in the Dungeon Master's Guide or anything else where you can have randomized encounters, like which enemies. You can have random items, that players find under a decrepit bed in an abandoned mansion or in a treasure chest or on an enemy's, in an enemy's pockets, right? There's also, you can randomly generate NPCs, their name, characteristics, what kind of beefs they got. You can randomly generate quests. You can randomly generate towns and dungeons. Heck, you could even randomly generate gods. That I'm gonna, take this to the bank. But wouldn't that be fun if you did a campaign where everybody was either a paladin or a cleric, and basically they didn't have just like one god, but like each time they tried to reach out to like get like guidance or help or anything like that, basically everything was randomized, and there were gods, but they like kind of got random abilities depending on which god responded. Anyway, fun idea. Not going to talk more about that, but you should lean into that. That's a good idea. So anyway, problem number one: people don't embrace randomness because they just worry about how it would affect the story, right? Like, oh, if I was fully random, how could I make a purposeful, well-crafted story? Well, what do you think? Like, is it possible? I think so. In fact, I think that certain campaigns would benefit greatly from it. In fact, I know multiple campaigns that add randomness to the world as part of world creation. They make it a feature, not a glitch. Like wild magic. There's a lot of campaigns where everyone's basically affected with wild magic, where anytime they use magic, something crazy and unplanned happens. And that adds a lot to the story. Now, I think it's also very important to say that, there are different types of campaigns, and not every campaign would benefit from a lot of randomness. But most campaigns could definitely be eased up with some amount of randomness, right? Some things that aren't as important, or things that you're like, you know what? I think randomizing this aspect makes it, it won't ruin anything. And that makes sense because, as most DMs will tell you, it's the plot points, like the big events that happen in the story, and the character moments that really make a campaign feel like it has great story, right? It's not how great a town you created. It's not, oh, this item was the perfect thing at the perfect moment. It's about like, okay, whatever the item is and whatever the town is, how did the players interact in that town? What happened when they were there? Like the actual plot points. So I really don't think that story and your worry about randomness affecting story should be a real concern. There's a lot of ways to tell great stories, and randomness doesn't have to get in the way of that. Now, a second problem that a lot of people feel, that I feel, is that, hey, if I randomized more, I would lose control of the game. Especially, it's hard enough stopping players from min-maxing and just, wiping your encounters out. Imagine if suddenly they rolled an amazing item that just beefed them up even more, right? That's where I think that you have to realize that there are aspects you can still control even with randomness, right? Especially when it comes to combats or items where being random could make too powerful an enemy, too powerful an item. In a way, I'm like, that allows you to flex your DMing muscles in interesting and new ways that usually you don't have to. For example, if it's too powerful of an enemy, well, guess what? You get what a lot of DMs hope to create anyway, which is a different kind of solution, right? Most of the time, players just are like, oh, I see an enemy, I beat an enemy. That's it. That's not an interesting story half the time, because you do that all the time. But if the player sees an enemy and is like, oh my goodness, my insight's telling me that we're cooked, then that's great. Like, it means that they have to escape, or they get caught and then they have to escape later, or they have to use diplomacy, or heck, they have to use the environment to somehow take out this enemy, at which point you need to get a little bit more creative. But isn't that what you love as a DM, is being like, okay, players are doing something weird, or the players are dealing with something hard, let's get creative. I think with a too powerful of an enemy, makes total sense to be able to, randomness could actually give you an opportunity that usually you might not lean into. Now, in terms of too powerful of an item, Let's think about it. They get an amazing item that, it basically has power word kill in it, right? And unlimited. You can tweak things. You can be like, hey, this is a super powerful item. You guys are level 3. If you use this, it'll actually hurt you because it's just such a powerful item. You can add like a seal of some sort on it, where it's like, oh, you only have partial power, or a certain amount of charges, where it's like, oh, it has this many charges. Especially when you're randomizing items, you don't have to do the item just as is. You can change it. And then, especially if you did go with something like, oh, it has a seal or it needs to be recharged, then that just gives another story element where, you can kind of push players in the direction that you think would be fun. Now, other ways that can be random that, feel like that makes DMs feel like they lose control, NPC choices. It's hard already keeping track of NPCs. Now imagine if you are creating random NPCs who don't necessarily feel like they super fit. Well, that's okay. Just make sure that you up your NPC tracking game. Have a notebook, have a little section of your Google Doc that's like labeled NPCs. And you know what? If your NPC feels like they've got more going on than just what's happening in the moment, that's great. It makes the world feel more full, feel more real. And in fact, it gives you ideas going forward. Now, you can obviously randomize NPC creation and after that be like, oh, I'm going to tweak some aspects about what the randomizer told me about this NPC to make it fit better. That's totally okay. You can control that. Doesn't need to change things terribly, right? But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to randomize without losing control. But the third problem, and I think this is more practical, players don't know how to do it. They don't know how to randomize. Like, they've never done it. They've always planned things. They've always been very purposeful, and that's fair. My suggestion, and it's one specific suggestion, is do a test dungeon. It could be with a current campaign that you're doing, could be with like a one shot or a long session or like a mini campaign that you run with your D&D group or with a new one. And kind of like how I was mentioning earlier, where like, oh, with world creation, randomness can be a feature, not a glitch. Make randomness a feature of this test dungeon. So basically it gives you a chance to experiment. You randomize as many things as you can and get the players into it. Let them know that that's what's happening. Let them know that this is a weird pocket of space-time and magic that like makes things random, and get them in on rolling the randomness. And if you're wondering like, well, how do I even start with that? Go online. There are so many tables for randomizing. The other day for a campaign, I did a randomized table for potions. And there were so many things to roll. Like, oh, does it have any drawbacks? Like any side effects? Like, how bad are they? Like, what's its actual effect? Is it a major or minor effect? Is it permanent? Is it poisonous? A little bit, there are so many things that you can find, like tables online that can randomize basically everything. And you can also find like dice rollers that make it easy to roll all of that dice. And once again, if you get the players involved with rolling, then that takes something off your chest, right? It makes it easier. So I think that if you don't know how to do it, do a test dungeon, make it a feature of that, get the players into it. Now, once the test dungeon's done, you'll probably look back and be like, oh, there were some things we randomized that didn't make the game more interesting or fun, and it didn't make my job easier. That's fine. You don't need to bring that into your future games. But the other stuff that did totally work, that the players were digging, that stuff, do it. I mean, bring it into other games. I think that that's a wonderful idea, and I think your players would appreciate it because, like, they basically went on with you on that journey of like, hey, what can we randomize? And they came out the other side seeing for themselves, oh, these things are kind of fun. And then I hope that when you do that, you have a similar experience to what I had when we were prepping for that FanX event. And and just realize like, oh my goodness, it's sometimes fun not knowing that everything is like hyper planned and knowing that things could go off the rails. And if they do, then I just need to adapt. And that's a great thing for you and your players, especially if you don't have almost any of that right now. But anyway, hopefully these were some good ideas to make you think about like, hey, maybe there is meaning in randomness. Maybe it adds an element to the game that is missing otherwise. And it's very much possible, very possible for you and your players to make it work. I hope you do it. I hope you do it in your next game or soon. Once again, best way to start, just go online, look up a bunch of tables, pick out the ones that look interesting and well crafted for you. But otherwise, before I close here, just again, I'm going to talk about FanX. For anyone wondering, basically we're in 6 different panels. Yeah, it feels like a lot, but it's 2 per day because it's a 3-day event. And we're talking about all things DMing. Like on Thursday, the 25th, at 3 p.m., we're talking about burnout, like DM burnout and how to reignite that. Not reignite burnout, but reignite your passion. And then at 6 p.m., we're talking about how to deal with players who are chaos gremlins. And then on Friday, we're talking about railroading, everything that, people perceive about it and how it's not necessarily right. And then later that day at 7, we talk about how to improv like a DM. And we actually have a few improv comedians joining us. So it should be a really interesting topic. And then on Saturday, that's actually the day at 12 p.m., we're having Roll for Chaos. That's like the unscripted D&D random adventure for an hour. It's tight, it's quick, it's fun. We like it. And then at 3 p.m., we're doing the DM Confidence Boost panel, which is just like, you know what? Justin realized that a lot of DMs, when they comment to us or send us emails or anything, a big issue, not an issue, but a big concern of a lot of theirs is confidence. They just don't feel like they can do it, especially for the new DM or even the existing DM who's like, oh man, these are interesting ideas. I just don't think I could make it happen. And that's fair. It totally is. But it's also like, if other DMs can do it, there's no reason you can't too. And we're just going to be talking about how to boost your confidence and being like, hey, we're great. DMing is very possible. It's not too hard either if you think about it in certain ways and change how you approach it. So yeah, that's that last one. And honestly, very excited for all of these. We've got some guests. We've got other familiar faces like Caden. And yeah, I hope that anyone who is going to be there comes and says hi. Regardless, hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a great day. Until next time, let's roll initiative.